broadcasting live from the Roanoke Valley of southwestern Virginia. Join us and see what life looks like from a medium's perspective with Reverend Tracey Lockwood, the medium's medium. We'll explore the tools of psychic development, hear stories and experiences from the other side, and learn to listen to our natural intuition. Now, our host, Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Today, I have my hero on the show. I have mentioned her probably, numerous times over the 3 years that I've been doing this show. And I want to tell you a little bit about her. She is a highly developed medium, and she's a teacher of mediumship. She's considered a veteran in the field. She has over 35 years of teaching experience. And she is just one of the kindest, most high character, incredible personality person that I've ever met. Her skill level is ridiculously awesome. And I will tell you a little bit more about how we met. I was doing some training in a metaphysical church here in the United States and ended up having a chance to take a workshop that she was offering here. And it was the first time in any class that I felt like I understood what I was supposed to be doing. I was a natural medium from birth, but I didn't really feel that stimulated by some of the training that I was offered. And in her class that day, the connection just was so easy. And as it was, I ended up parting ways with that other venue and missing training. And so I went on the internet and I thought, I wonder if I can find her and if she's teaching somewhere else. And she was, but it was in the UK at Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Science in Essex at Stansted. And I thought, oh, there's just no way that I could possibly go there. But I couldn't let it go. And it was really a miraculous path that allowed me to go ahead and sign up for her class and a couple of other classes in November of 2010. I'm not a great traveler. I love to travel. I'm a Sagittarius, so I love to travel. It's just the process of travel that is rough on me. So when I next saw her, I was green and sick and drooling and just so nauseous from the travel. And she was so kind because she immediately offered to let me lie down on her bed because my room had not been prepared. And she left me in quietude so I could recover myself. And it was quite embarrassing for me to be seen in that state. And then the most wondrous thing happened, which was the class that began. It was a 5-day class, this first one was. And again, her teaching ability, teaching energetically and intuitively and creatively just activated my ability. And Spirit was very kind and allowed me to bring through her mother along with another medium that I was working in tandem with, Alana Mayan, who is a French medium. And it just bolstered my confidence so much. And I've always held her in great esteem. And I am so happy to introduce to you today, Minister Val Williams. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tracey. What a lovely build-up. Gosh, I'm sitting here blushing.
Oh, you shouldn't at all. Yeah. I'm flushing because I'm so excited to have you. I just love you to pieces, and you radiate love, and your students adore you for that too.
Thank you very much.
A lot of our listeners they're a little bit curious because they want to kind of snoop about on the web while they're listening to the show. And so I'm going to give them your website, which is internationalmedium.co.uk. And you gave a good tip that if they just put in Val Williams medium, they'll find you. And I did that and boom, just directly popped up. So I thought, okay, what do I ask her? Because you're such an extraordinary teacher. And I didn't want to just have a topic. I wanted it to be something, really meaningful to our listeners, and what a great opportunity for me too. So I decided, and you agreed kindly, to talk about teaching mediumship, the experience of teaching mediumship.
Yes.
I guess the first question that I want to ask you is, how has being a medium, and secondarily, how has being a teacher of mediumship affected your perspective of things?
Well, a little like you, when I first started, I just went into a church, and the first time I visited a spiritualist church, I could see things clairvoyantly, often over people's heads. The first thing I ever saw was a toilet.
Ah.
And I gave the lady a message. It wasn't a message, it was two things. And I remember saying to her, "I've seen a toilet over your head." "Oh," she said, "that's marvelous." I said, "Is it really?" She said, "Yes, my dear." She said, "My husband has a problem with his waterworks, and we are moving from a house with 2 toilets to a house with 1, and I'm worried." And quick as a flash, I said, "Oh, I've just seen a ship's wheel over your head." She said, "That is so wonderful." I said, "Is it?" She said, "Yes, my father was a sea captain, and now I know he's going to look after us."
Oh.
So that was my very first ever, thank God not public. I gave it her privately afterwards. But it gave me a little encouragement, because ever since I can remember, I had voices that told me things. And many of those things were quite negative. Mm-hmm. And I was advised by a psychic in my town to go to a church to pray for my cousin who'd been murdered. And her death has always worried me. Mm-hmm. So I agreed to go to this church that my friend went to regularly, where she said they talk to the dead. And I thought, that's a strange sort of a place to go, because although I'd always had the voices, I didn't know that they really were the voices of the so-called dead, according to so-called normal people. My mother used to say, "You'll be mentally ill, dear." And as we had mentally ill people in the family, I learned quickly to keep quiet.
Yes.
But once I went to the church, and then I tried to find a development group, etc., because I call it galloping mediumship. I just would open my mouth. All sorts of things would jump out, and people would say yes. But I had no control over it, and I didn't know I should be responsible for it. So I just generally sat in 1 or 2 circles, was very discontented with the quality of tutoring, because they used to say, "You must do it as we did it in 1940. You must do it my way."
Yes.
And my absolute, it's not a belief, it's a knowledge. Every single one of us has something unique, and it's the uniqueness that the spirit world tap into. And they say, "This is going to be our medium. We must take her and teach her." So I came to the conclusion that there was only one thing for it, that if I couldn't sit in a circle generally, I would have to sit with spirit and ask them to teach me. And a good friend who was a healer, and I, as a medium, used to sit together, and we sat together on a very regular basis for 12 months. Mm-hmm. In that time, we know now, looking back, the spirit people came closer, the spirit teachers came closer. And so all my development has actually been by spirit and spirit alone. So as a teacher, what I had to understand then was, I didn't even understand actually at first how my own mediumship worked. And a gentleman who's in spirit world now asked me would I tutor on one of his regular courses. And before that, we met up, and I was giving a message to somebody in his presence, and he kept stopping me and saying, "Tell me, dear, how are you experiencing that? Do you hear it? Do you sense it?" And that was the best thing anybody had ever done for me. And so I took that forward. And I first went into a spiritualist church 37 years ago. It was 1980, October. I was running classes, etc., within 18 months, as well as doing demonstrations. And my first working group at the Arthur Findlay College was in 1986. A medium called Albert Best asked me to work. And I literally handed it over to Spirit because I had had no formal teachings for myself. I'd no guidelines to follow.
Yes.
And every single day, every single workshop, Spirit led me minute by minute through situations. So it was quite a profound experience. It was petrifying. Think, well, you don't structure it like other people structure it. But I think that became invaluable because I see each individual student exactly as that, a unique individual with a uniqueness to their own gift.
Yes, and you've passed that light along. I came back from Arthur Findlay, came back at the suggestion of yourself during a reading, or your guides or my guides during a reading, and started teaching. And I had the examples of the class work that we had done at Arthur Findlay, but what I learned more was, yes, the exercises were part of it, but more I felt how each of you taught and what was going on energetically for you as a teacher, which helped me be a better teacher. And I started doing the same thing, teaching intuitively.
But you see, I honestly believe, even as children, we get a structure, don't we? And we can look at other people and think, oh, I've never wanted to be like that other person, but I'd like to be seen to be as good as that other person,
Sure.
as capable or as professional, whatever the situation is. But we are always, to our last day on this earth, especially with mediumship, we are learning as we teach, we're teaching as we learn.
Yes.
And I have to say, quite honestly, it offends a lot of people, but I honestly believe that we humans don't teach anybody anything. I believe we facilitate on behalf of the spirit guides of that individual medium.
Boom. I agree completely. And I feel like my clients and my students become my teachers in the sense that if they don't ask or a situation doesn't arise, I don't know. But when it does, Spirit always kindly provides the answer.
That's right.
Or the inspiration or the concept that's necessary. And often I'll take notes for myself so that I can think about it afterwards.
Absolutely. Yes, I've done this all along but you see, to me, it's such a great honor that somebody else's guide or team of spirit workers will allow somebody like me to interlink with them to bring guidance to their medium. If I do a private reading, and they give me, as they did with you, obviously, guidance about where your medium should be, it stops a person that way going down the wrong track.
Yes.
So, for example, if somebody thought they should be a trance medium, but their gift was actually of intuitive mediumship or even healing, which is a great form of mediumship.
Yes.
There's no point them wasting a lot of time at this particular stage. In years to come, yes, they may do other things. Their mediumship may lead them, for example, to trance mediumship, but not necessarily. So we never say, I want to be a certain type of medium.
Oh, yeah, that always bothers me if somebody says, well, I want to be, like on the stage, or I want to be, and thankfully, so few people actually put it that way.
Yes.
But because it's not a heart of service, and even though we are psychic, we don't see always where we're supposed to be going. And that I wouldn't be able to be where I am, and I'm sure it's true for other people, without the tremendous ability of other mediums, sort of lighting the way so that the path becomes clearer, or the direction becomes more crystallized. and
Yes.
and simpler when it feels like a bowl of spaghetti. Some days it's like, oh, this is the way out. That's the way out through the trees, you know.
If I can just interject,
Sure.
I find myself saying during every course, for those of you who are absolutely new to this and don't have the confidence, let me tell you, I have had probably 4 pieces now of the best ever evidence from somebody giving their first ever message.
Yes.
Before they've been trained to do it appropriately or speak a certain way or act a certain way. And so my big thing from that stage is helping people to get into that power with spirit, to become the personality, to become the emotion of the spirit person, to transmit not just to the one person, but to everybody in a room during the demonstration, this love and this energy that is the vital life force of a spirit person. I love it.
Yes, yes, yes. So when you approach teaching, you would say probably what about like your basic concept of teaching? Do you still teach the same way, or do you teach?
No, it's changed considerably. I had a problem when I first started in that I had never ever meditated. And the word itself petrified me because I thought, I've got to sit here now. They said, clear your mind, but I don't think my mind will ever be clear until I'm dead. Yeah. So I had a real problem with that. So I've changed the wording of that. Instead of saying, let us meditate, I say, let's use meditation now to focus on that which is most important, which means you've come here for this experience, so allow yourself to have it. And then from that meditation, take them to a place where they will feel safe and secure, then to raise their consciousness, to take them to that place of attunement with the spirit world, and therefore to ask their guides, I call it setting your intent. Invite your guides to come and express what is the purpose of why you are sitting at this time. Maybe before you do a private reading for somebody to say, please bring for them the highest and the best and that which will resonate properly with them.
Yes.
And they can understand and that they can use as help and guidance for themselves. So the setting the intent is something that's been very new in the last 3 years. And also I've done a number of CDs, I think there's either 7 or 8 of them, which they can find actually on the website. And one of them is learning to release yourself totally. So you take on, if you like, the being of an animal or a bird. Because until you can totally forget I am the human being with a mind and with psychic and spiritual abilities, you cannot embrace the actual energy and power that is spirit. Once you can do this and let yourself be free, you can start to feel psychological, physiological changes, the mindset of the spirit person, embrace that energy of spirit, and it becomes real. Even to the journalist who may be investigating, they can start to feel that something is more real.
Yes, people wonder what is my imagination versus what's real.
What is real?
But isn't the imagination the connection between the two?
It very often in a stable, mentally stable person,
yes,
100% it is. And
versus like fantasy or projection or overlaying.
Yes, it is. And actually what happened apparently some years ago, though, I don't remember, but I've used the technique since. And I advise anybody who is having groups or facilitating to try this. If you have a student who's very nervous and they think it's just imagination, the only way to find out is by testing it. But if they haven't got the confidence to get in the energy to test it, you can use the technique. And what I say to the student is, all right, totally relax. Now, imagine there was a person standing behind you. Would that be a man or a woman? Oh, they say a man. Now, if there was a man standing there, how old would he be? Oh, 37. And what illness would he have died with if he was there? And when I've done that, people have had some of the best evidence they'll ever get in their progressing mediumship.
Oh, yes, yes, yeah. And that tree of things that starts building. I think a lot of people starting out think that they're going to see a spirit like a person. And I know that there are some mediums that are able to do that. But for me, I don't do that. For me, it's piece by piece, sort of like an emulsion photography. Like I might notice a hand or a height or a, piece by piece, but then that image becomes clearer and clearer and clearer until in my mind I see them.
Right. Well, when I first started, it was a little light. The way I translate this, I remember going to see a crystal ball reader many years ago, and what she saw in the crystal ball, I now know to be clairvoyance, in that she sees it with her spiritual gift, but then she starts to see it objectively. So she believes she's seeing it in the crystal ball. And that's how I used to see spirit people.
Oh, interesting. That's very interesting. You were talking about that difference too between forcing information or not. And I think of it too as like the difference would be if you're pushing something, like straining your eyes, your physical senses, and you're on point and you're just like going to make up anything, then your energy is kind of in a pushing mode, and you're projecting things, and your ego and your intellect are involved. Your thoughts and your emotions are attached to what the outcome is. But if you relax and sit back and just observe and feel and just let the randomness of it all sort of flow by like the symbols in a dream and just convey what you get. Sometimes that's much more surprising to you because it is a thought outside of your left brain.
Absolutely. Well, of course, as children, I mean, I had a fabulous imagination. So I was told as a child that I know now is now my spirit friend. But, we used to have coal fires when I was a little girl. And I'd sit for hours just looking in the coal fire, and I would see faces and animals and all sorts of things. I didn't know that spirit were already training me from that tiny age to perceive and then be able to see spirit people, their faces, their bodies, the shapes around them, and scenery. I did a reading recently. I've just come back from Canada, and a young lady has given me permission to talk about this. And suddenly her mother, who, bless her heart, had recently died of cancer, showed me that I was at a concert. And I was so excited, and I felt I was this woman at the concert. See, after 37 years, I still get excited. See the guitarist, the smoky atmosphere that they produce themselves. And I said, I'm not sure of the name of this group. It might be the Eagles. But I said, I know that one of the judges is a judge on one of the talent shows in America. And she just burst into tears and laughter at the same time. And she said, no, that's Steve Tyler, is it? And she said what the group is. And he is a judge on this talent show.
Oh.
So the excitement of that. So my big thing, especially in mediumship to students, is be willing to be wrong. I said I thought it was the Eagles, which was incorrect. But she knew exactly. It was the last concert she'd been to with her mother.
Wow.
Because people will think, well, why can't I do that? 30 years ago, December 22nd, my life changed and I became a single woman. And from that day, almost daily, I have worked with spirit. You can't just do it once in a month for an hour and expect to get the quality that you want.
Yes, I agree. And I think that, unfortunately, I see kind of a trend here in the States, at least, with people that are having wonderful experiences and getting wonderful information, but not disciplining themselves or structuring it or deepening it or doing it enough to gain the depth of experience, because it does build and you have to start somewhere.
Absolutely. But you see, I also know that they didn't have the guidance I had. When I first went to the Arthur Findlay College, way back in 1984, the people I actually took guidance from were old mediums. It wasn't a college then, it was Stansted Hall. We went for courses, but it was a different environment. So you would get mediums who'd retired, who were in their 80s and 90s. They would go for rest and relaxation in the company of like-minded people. So I would take my opportunity to ask a little lady of perhaps 90, did you used to sit in circle? How did you do it? And when they would talk those people about how they would structure their development times, they didn't not go to circle because the car broke down. They didn't say they were staying at home because the X Factor was on the television. They kept the regular appointment time. And so spirit respected them and they respected spirit. And nothing, no tools of the trade are just handed to anybody. I think we have to earn the right.
Yes.
But also, when I first started, we didn't get paid. I always bring this up because anybody can earn their living doing this. But it's like any job, you've got to be good enough.
Yes.
The labourer is worthy of their hire, but you have to be good enough to maintain it.
Yeah. I always think of it one client at a time, one student at a time.
Yeah.
And that's my entire world at that moment. And
absolutely. And never to lose that focus that we're working for spirit.
Yes.
And we please the physical person, because if we're pleasing spirit and the physical person feels that love reconnecting, that personality coming around them, that is a huge healing process.
Yeah.
The recipient.
Yeah, I love to see the transformation of someone's energy. They come in maybe edgy, depressed.
Yes.
They might, just be frenetic in their thinking, their thoughts, and come in and sit down. And by the time they go, to see them relaxed, their eyes are shiny, they're smiling, or they feel peace. Maybe if it's a very difficult situation, at least they feel a clearer path in front of them. And the shift in their energy is
fabulous,
beautiful. And I love it. And I'm sure you do too, when people say they feel like they visited with that person, or that they understood that person in a way that they didn't ever see them before.
Yes, it's a blessing, and it's a blessing to be allowed to be a part of that person.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even from childhood, and I'm sure the same with you. I've always felt like it's the greatest treasure.
Yes,
that somebody actually would come to me and pour their heart out and listen to anything that would come out of my mouth, at all. It's amazing and it's precious. And if you were to advise people that are considering teaching, what's the best advice that you could give to budding teachers?
Care about your students individually. Know that at times you're going to have students who need more duty of care. Don't make mistakes like telling people how they have to do it, as I've already said. Yeah. Take time to find out from your students what natural mediumship has already shown itself, or perhaps are they particularly artistic and creative? And that can be drawn into the basis, the foundation of their mediumship, as well as their intuitive knowledge. Once you start putting together a person's natural gifts, so for example, somebody who's very good at drawing faces, invariably in time they may become a psychic artist. And I don't have to be a psychic artist to know how to help a person to get into the energy, to hand over to spirit, and then let it come naturally.
I think that people often get stopped at the term psychic or medium. It's sort of like them over there. But I think that one of the things that I wish that, and one reason that I began this show, was that there is so much diversity within the field.
Yes, absolutely.
I think my sense of competition with other mediums, I think I have a sense of competition with myself now, but with other mediums stopped when I realized that it would be physically impossible for me to read for every single person that walks the planet.
I know
That I probably in my lifetime am not going to do several billion readings, like.
But see, if you're competitive,
Uh-huh.
and then I think if you're competitive, you're not ready to teach.
That's a good point. That's a
Once,
good point.
yeah, once you've found your own level, then you will never feel you have to be in competition with your students.
Yeah.
Because invariably, some of your students may at times come up with a quality of mediumship that perhaps you haven't tapped into yet,
Yes.
or it haven't brought to you yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sort of sets a new goal for you. And then then I think it's a test for the teacher, whatever your facilitator. What sort of a tutor are you really? There's a lot of jealousy in anything to do with mediumship at times.
There can be.
But a true teacher, blending with spirit, doing their teaching intuitively, will never ever feel that envy or competitiveness.
No.
And I do advise people as well, as I said earlier, we don't want anybody to clone somebody else. Sometimes it happens, it's unfortunate. But I used to look at the older mediums and I'd think, what is it about that person that I would like to have? And I remember saying to Spirit, and I say this to the students, one medium in particular, after she'd worked, gave you the feeling that the loved ones walked out with their physical family.
Mm-hmm.
You could see the change in the people as if, I'm walking arm in arm with my loved one again.
Yes.
Wanted that. I wanted that quality of love restoring to prove we're never separated from somebody we have loved.
Well, I think that you have achieved that. So, spoil us a little bit. Could you give us some examples of exercises maybe to develop the different senses individually, like clairvoyance, maybe an exercise, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance?
Claircognizance, no, because I think you've either got it or you haven't.
Okay, that makes sense. Yep.
I mean, anything is a case of, if people would learn when to switch off and when to switch on again. I don't do chakra exercises or anything. I just say to people,
Me neither.
make the appointment time.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you should have a chakra for 5 years of working.
Mm-hmm.
So I honestly haven't. I admire people who go through the discipline of it all. But for me, it's always been a simple case of, so today I would say to Spirit, on Friday night at 7 o'clock, I've got a reading to do. Please, will you be there? So that's my opening up. And my closing down is, now I've got life to get on with in different ways. I'll speak to you at the next appointment time.
That's about as elaborate as I am too.
A lot of people are taught a lot of these exercises. The seeing of spirit is that exercise I said of looking in the fire, looking up at the clouds, just letting your attention be diverted. You don't see spirit with your physical eyes. It's not possible. But if you learn to divert, let your mind run to other things, you may suddenly realize, oh, there is an energy here. It's coming into my mind. And a lot of people will see subjectively first in their mind. Mm-hmm. Then that image will grow. Now, if they leave it just to sit there, if you like, and they see this sort of image vaguely like imagination in their mind, that doesn't help them. What they need to do if they ever do experience that is say, I believe there is a spirit person there. Could you show yourself to me, please? You know, just as if you're talking to a person you're only just meeting.
Yes.
As if it's normal. Which to me it is, to you it is, and we shouldn't make it an abnormal situation.
Yeah, it's not supernatural or bizarre. No. It's a completely natural. And I'm so thankful. It appears that science is catching up a bit, quantum physics and string theory and all that.
With clairaudience, for me it just happened. I remember being in a very, very noisy environment, and I could hear lots and lots of voices talking at once. And I just said, well, how ridiculous is that? If you want me to understand you, I need one to talk to me at a time, which would have been lovely if they'd have just done it that way. All I knew, for me, that was the start of my clairaudience. But before that, what had happened, I kept getting a thought in my head that was persistent. In time, that persistent thought became a voice, and in time I came to know from the voice within my soul, if you like, learned if it was a man, a woman, a child, etc., etc. But people have to understand, they have to work with this, they have to take times to say to their own guide, perhaps 2 of us can sit together for an hour and a half, however long they want to. Spirit teachers, please, will you, during this time where we just give you our hour or hour and a half, will you please come and give us these exercises? Because it's spirit who are doing it, not the facilitator.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah. Have you ever, I'm sure this has happened, like led an exercise and someone has completely different experience, perfectly wonderful experience, but just not at all related to the topic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's not what spirit want them to do at that time. So occasionally, as a group leader, a circle leader, a tutor, occasionally the tutor can get it wrong. Yes. But it's still given the time to the student to be with spirit, and spirit will take them the way they want to go.
You had touched on something about claircognizance, and that either you have it or you don't, which is clear knowing of situation. I think of it as our basic intuition.
Yeah.
But I like what you said about learning to turn it on and off. That's a very frequently asked question. Sometimes I think maybe people aren't turning it off because they're kind of fascinated at the same time as they want it to stop. But what do you advise people with being able to turn on and off?
Well, it's all a mental discipline, and our personal disciplines are so important. They keep us sane. They help us to know when spirits are and are not there. So I've used 2 particular exercises, and this is, it's your personal discipline of saying, now I am shutting out the voices, the visions from the spirit world. I've got to go and cook my family's dinner. I've got to go to the supermarket. I've got to go to the dentist. So I say, picture yourself standing under a shower and just mentally seeing your whole aura or energy field being cleansed, and that will just do it.
Yes.
And another way, especially if somebody's had a contact that's been a bit emotional for them, perhaps, picture the tallest, strongest tree, and just picture yourself standing there as the trunk of the tree, and let your legs become the roots. And as you stand there, let it feel as if your legs are going into the ground, making you stand very strong and very, very tall. And no matter what comes towards you, you know, the wind can blow the tree. So once you are in a stable place of, I've closed the spirit world down, then nothing could trouble you. Because some people are worried, well, but what about these people from spirit who want to talk to me all hours of the day or night? Of course they will if they get the listening ear. Mm-hmm. But it will never be the quality of medium that you should be trying to achieve of if you are open all the time.
Yeah. People probably don't realize how draining and how unbalanced it can be to be open all the time. You know, our subtle energies get dispersed. What would you... I love that one with the tree. I think that's beautiful, and the shower is a great one.
Yes,
but it does bring us back. I know I was taught one that I really like, and occasionally teach as well, called the rainbow zipper, and it was basically like zipping up you dropping off anything heavy and then zipping up your energy so that all the colors of your chakras, which are like the rainbow, are closed behind that, so that you can still perceive but not be so dispersed. And I think a lot of sensitive people are too expanded for their own good sometimes.
Well, I learned a lesson the hard way. Many years ago, I was on my way to a church just for the service on a Wednesday afternoon, and I was in a cafe, and I watched this lovely elderly man, he was probably in his late 80s, help his elderly lady up. She was obviously in a lot of pain and discomfort, and I just thought, oh, that's a shame. And you know, your love energy goes to these people, because I was 34 at the time. Mm-hmm. And I went round to the spiritualist church. I could barely walk when I got there, and I had pains and pains. And afterwards, I spoke to a medium I respected there very much, and I asked her. And she said, well, go back to when the pain first came. And she said, what you've done, you've linked in on a healing level and a mediumistic level to that poor lady. But she says, then what you've done, you've given what we call magnetic energy. You've given of your own, which doesn't help the lady at all and makes you feel unwell. So you have to learn how to shut it off.
Yeah, yes.
So early lesson that I learned the hard way.
Yeah, being able to be loving, but have an objective detachment, not a clinical or cold detachment, but
right. Well, what we learn as well is we are not and never will be the power, but we have spirit operatives. So now what I would do is say to spirit, please, could somebody there give that lady healing?
Yes.
I've got to get on with my life.
Yes, yes, yes.
Do you know what a guide said once, Tracey? A spirit guide through a very good trance medium. Always control the control who controls you.
Oh, I like that. Yes, that's
that clever?
Yes, that's really, because it's about the will and it's about energy and focus. And yes, it's a responsibility to control.
Absolutely. But you see, it's like anything else. If you don't have your personal disciplines, when you come to work, you're so used to all this willy-nilly information floating around, you can't be that disciplined person for spirit that they need you to be to pass on the love messages.
Yeah. In terms of the teacher's responsibility and setting boundaries for students, what would you say on that? Or handling maybe a disruptive student?
Setting the boundaries has always been difficult for me, because when I am working with my students, as you know, I want to be part of them. I want to feel their energy. I want to enjoy them. But then at the same time, for my energy, it's good. I have to switch off from them sometimes. But when it comes to a disruptive student, it's a case of trying to find out, why are they disruptive? Are they there because they've no self-esteem at all? Are they being disruptive because there is some sort of mental, or, for example, I had somebody who was epileptic once. It's finding the reason behind it, because usually the people who shine the most are the ones who are the quietest and would never disrupt anybody. The disruptive ones, in some cases, are people who've been abused, and they think that working with the mediumship is supposed to help them become a better person and can take all their pain away. So it depends the reason for the disruptive influence.
Yeah.
I had a gentleman not too long ago, and I didn't know, and it's the only student I've ever shouted at in my life. And at the end of the week, he thanked me and cried for putting up with him, because nobody had ever given him the time I had. And I didn't quite get that. And they went back to their own country, and his wife wrote to me later and thanked me. And she said, you obviously realised he had Asperger's. Well, no, I did not. I'm not a medical person. But I just knew that if I had allowed him to carry on this way of peculiar behaviour, it would disrupt the whole class. And I have to prove, as a good tutor, that nobody should be allowed to disrupt or take time out that is invaluable to people who have, they've placed their trust in me as a tutor, and they must each have equal time, valuable time with spirit. And the only way to progress as a good medium is practice, 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 which in a disruptive environment you cannot do.
Yeah, and if you're trying to be sensitive and tune into spirit, don't forget that the people that are listening to the messages are receiving those messages, and the sensitivity to your classmates.
But also, if you have a disruptive person, it's a very, very good test for students, actually, to be able to tune that disruption out and concentrate on spirit. So it can be utilized at the same time.
Yes. And I loved the compassionate way you looked at it, too, to look at the deeper reasons.
Absolutely.
For why that's going on there, too.
You know, one of the worst cases I had, Tracey, was a gentleman who had hidden bottles of alcohol all around the building. And he had a very severe problem, and he upset a lot of people. And one day he was on the rostrum and they'd do a talk about themselves. And he turned his face away from the audience and he talked about a little boy who was given alcohol when he was the age of 2, so that both parents could abuse him. When this little boy grew up, he ran away, and he ran away to the Navy, and he'd been all around the world, but nobody had ever cared about him as a human being. And he had come to a place, and he found people who were kind to him, who showed him love. And then he looked at us and he said, and that little boy was me.
Oh,
and we all
teared up here.
Well, promise you. But that was the power of the loving care of the people that week.
Yes, I've had biblical stuff popping up. First, the first thing was when you were talking about identifying and starting to separate the voices and things, and I thought about the gifts of the Spirit that are talked about in, I think it's 1st or 2nd Corinthians, the discerning of spirits, you know, and that you can tell the fruit by the fruit of the person, and love being the greatest of all, what that person's about by the fruit that they bear. And love is number one for sure.
Absolutely.
And, you know, as a teacher, the love and respect that I give my students, it means so much to me personally to have it back.
Yes.
It's not that I must have it or I would teach any differently either, but it's such a tremendous cycle. And you certainly ignited that concept.
I'm glad. We have to learn to walk the talk. I don't think any longer can we go on in this life saying we are mediums who care about people if we just talk the talk. We have to put ourselves up there to be counted and show that we are walking that talk.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Val.
You're welcome.
I want to remind everyone of how to reach you. Just put in Val Williams Medium and you'll find it, or internationalmedium.co.uk.
That's it.
Any parting thoughts that you would leave with our budding teachers?
Enjoy sharing everything Spirit have taught you, because if you're ready to teach, you will have already let go of some of other people's ideas and ideals. You'll have your own format, and every group that you teach, Spirit will add something personally for that group. Every group I teach, they get a different meditation. And then they say, have you recorded it? I say, no, that was just for you.
Yes.
So if your focus is on caring about your students, Spirit will just back you up. It's a no-brainer.
What have you found helpful in helping students overcome blockages and fear in their mediumship, like moving past that?
Well, the way I put it, and I'll give you the words of my guide. You are who you are, not despite everything that happened, but because of it. So anything that you've ever had in your own life that has hurt you, destroyed you, taken your self-esteem, brought you to your knees, you can now use to help in the teaching capacity, because you will recognize that in your students and you can help them to move on.
Oh, well said and perfectly timed. Val, I love you dearly. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you,
today.
Tracey. An honor.
And for our listeners, remember, it's never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, you have nothing. See you next week.